Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Training opportunities.
I know. It's like, oh my God. And unfortunately, you don't. So with AHEMA, I know they have certain domains that they have to hit and cover um, to kind of check off the box to say that they did this or did that within their program. Um, but you would think they would get down to the weeds. You have to go deep, particularly if the person is trying to get certification. Those are things. Those are basic bare bone things that you would need to know.
Can I give you an example,
Yeah.
Clarice? When you talk about the domains, there are domains that they're supposed to cover, but they don't. And the reason why they can't cover them is because the students don't even know the basics. If you do not understand causal relationships, how are you going to understand? Plus, their book doesn't even have this in their repertoire. I mean, in the book. How are you going to understand that congestive heart failure can affect an inpatient MSDRG?
Wow.
How are you going to know that?
Wow.
And that's also on your CCS exam. Like they assume that you know these things. Like, but their book doesn't even tell them what MSD, what's a CC and an MCC. When I have my classes, I tell everybody to buy the Optum 360 Spiral for a hospital because it's going to have your HCC designated. It's going to have your MSDRG. It's going to have like the CC, the MCC, and I explain to them what it is and what it means and how you determine it. They don't even know that your CC or MCC is based off of your secondary diagnosis, not your primary diagnosis, even though it will bump up the DRG for the primary diagnosis. They
Right.
don't even know how to calculate a DRG. I have to go and I have downloaded sample DRGs because the DRG is different per region
Correct.
because there's different calculations. So I
Correct.
just picked one and showed them the chart, and I showed them how you calculate how to do roughly calculate it because there's other geographic locations, but I'm not going to get into that. I just get into what is the base DRG and what is it for if it's a CC or what is it if it's an MCC, and they are taught none of that in the course.
And for an inpatient, you would think that that would be something that they would need to know. You need to know the foundation. You need to know the whys. You need to know, where all of this comes from and why you do what you do. It's based on this additional background information.
Clarice, in a year and a half of the college where I worked, nobody could properly, before they started with me, could properly identify what what a root operation was for any procedure. And then also getting back to the whole reimbursement and the whole MSDRG, there are certain inpatient procedures that can also affect the DRG, will increase the DRG. And those are the procedures that are highlighted in purple in the PCS table. Once again, they're not taught that, but you have to know it for the exam.
Wow. That is crazy.
That is very true because being a CPC coder and studying for CCS and reading their material, they don't give you examples of what this is for. It's very true.
The CCS is not it's not an easy exam. It's the hardest one because it is the only one that tests you on all three major code sets.
Hmm.
It's certainly doable because people pass it every day, but
Right.
it's all about the correct preparation.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with you every bit of that right there.
And I mean, with these students, I mean, and these programs are not cheap. They really
No.
Oh
aren't.
no, they're not.
And they
No.
don't even, I mean, it's almost like they're just doing the bare minimum, and you get out there, and if you pass, you pass, and if you don't, you have to really figure out how to get there on your own. You know how many people I've tutored who have paid for online programs, and when I give them a sample test, they don't know basic guidelines, and I'm like, these are things that you have to know guidelines like the back of your hand before you go and sit in front of anybody's computer thinking you're going to pass any kind of certification exam.
I totally agree with that.
And
I have a friend girl. She just took her CPC for the second time, and she texted me yesterday, and she was like, "Tara, I'm so mad. I failed by 2 points."
oh God.
And I said, "I have 100 on your guidelines." She said, "No." And I told her, let me tell you, if you can get 100 on your guidelines and anatomy on a CPC, you can pass it. I said that, and knowing like the rules and regulations, if you can, that right there is gonna give you 100. Now if you can get hundreds in those areas, that's gonna let you get past that 70 that you need.
See, what people don't understand is like, because when I tell you, I calculate it down to the question, because like for a HEMA, for instance, like they give you ranges. So I just picked the top range for every domain. And so if it says that this domain is 65% of the score, that means, and for CCS and for CCSP, that's pretty much what it is. When you combine like the coding and the procedure part, that means that you have to know that domain. You have to pass that domain in order to pass it, period. If you get below a certain percentage, you're not going to pass. It doesn't matter how well you do on the other questions, because the way that the exam is weighted, you're not going to have enough to pull you up over that hump. And they don't tell people how, like, because for AAPC, they say, well, you have to get 105 right to pass.
Right.
But they don't tell you what 105 you have to get right. Like, there's going to be more questions on this section versus that section, which is just what you were saying. But they aren't preparing these students before they go in, so they know exactly how to prepare and what they have to do to be successful.
And I've run into students as well.
Who taught me when I took my CPC? She was great. I don't know how she figured out some stuff, but you know what? AAPC, they had test A, B, C, and D, right?
Right.
She heard that like certain ones had more questions for like cardio and respiratory because they put that kind of area together. So like I think it was like test C. She's like, if you get test C, you better make sure that you know your cardio and respiratory, because on that test they have more questions in that area. And she was right. I don't know how she learned it. I guess she had been doing it for so long that she would ask the students like which test they had and stuff. And that's what she told us. She's like, if you can make sure you know your guidelines, like little stuff in the books that are the answers are right there, knowing the years and everything. That's like, she was like, you make sure you write these years down and everything. If you pass those areas, then you're more than likely going to be okay.
But I think it's even more important. I mean, and I appreciate that those types of lessons are going on, but I think it's even more important to have the understanding and that foundation. So you want to make sure that people are learning the basics of coding, not just, it kind of reminds me of how the school with our kids and all the testing that they do. So the teachers are testing or teaching to the test. They're not teaching to the information and the knowledge. And I think we have to also make sure, those of us who are instructors, that we're actually teaching the information and the foundation. And while we are incorporating what's important for the test and making sure that our students are successful in taking the test, we shouldn't just teach to the test, if that makes sense. Because when you walk away, you're testing your school environment is a little different than, as we all know, your everyday real life environment. And so if you don't have the necessary skills to be able to navigate that and know, hey, I know the guidelines related to this, not just guidelines that should be important for a testing situation or a school environment, but yeah, I can go and find the guidelines related to XYZ, regardless of whether or not it was something that was introduced on a test. And so I think it's really, really, really important or critical that we also make sure they understand, how to code, understanding guidelines, knowing the foundation of where those guidelines come from, knowing why you do, even to Jesse's point, understand if they're inpatient coding, making sure they understand about the DRGs. You got all of those different things that play into why we do what we do in the role of the business of healthcare. So I think all of those things are part of that. And probably most importantly, the compliance element and making sure they're doing things ethically. Don't get me started.
I mean, but she was really good. She linked everything together, but like she would help us like learn to, use time wisely with our test, with the test, because everybody, didn't test, well. Like you knew the material, but wasn't a good tester. She was actually a good teacher.
Yeah.
I can say she taught me a lot. And being in the, already was working in the field, she still taught me. So you're right. She did that too.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a dance. It's a combination of both of them. And like I was mentioning before, even with the AAPC examination, you definitely need to understand how to take a multiple choice exam. And that's where, the process of elimination and all of those types of things come into play. But again, you got to have that firm foundation on, it's more than taking a book and being able to say, oh, boom, code right here. This is it. Let me assign it. No, because that action is going to be one of your choices. And that's not correct. So you have to know, all the pieces, the moving pieces related to that.
I agree completely, Clarice. And also, what these schools have to prepare these students to do and to help them is they don't coding students don't realize that just because you take and pass an exam, that does not mean that you're in like Flynn. Because most jobs that you apply for in coding, you have to also take their coding assessment.
Exactly.
And not all of them are multiple choice.
Exactly.
You just have to. They give a scenario and you have to code it.
Exactly.
And if you don't pass it, regardless of that credential, they're not going to hire you.
Exactly. You have to know how to code and know what that means. That means more than just, oh, I can go look it up in the index, go back to the tabular and abstract the code. It's more than that. It's much more comprehensive than that.
Because I had one of the most common questions I've had on, and I see it a lot in coding. Somebody has hypertension and they have CKD stage 5,
Mm-hmm.
and they're on dialysis. Now, okay, most people they'll get that you have to use the I-12.0. But what people don't understand is if you don't read in the tabular and if you don't know that when somebody has CKD stage 5 and they're on dialysis, you don't code N18.5. You code it as end stage, N18.6, and then you use the status code Z99.2.
Mm-hmm.
I see that question all the time, and they ask it because most people, if you don't know, you don't know.
Right.
You just think, oh well, it's the CKD stage 5, and you just code Z99.2. No, it's an instructional note in the tabular that if on dialysis, you code N18.6 end stage.
And
those are things you have to know.
I tell my students all the time, reading is fundamental. As we mentioned, we looked at that yesterday. Reading is fundamental. What did that say? Make sure you read. You'll miss stuff if you don't. Well, so I didn't get to say, hey, Tara. Hey, Tara.
Good morning. I was a little late. Amazon got me this morning.
Oh, so Jesse, you sent Tara a copy of your toolkit as well. Were you able to access the information or look at it?
Yes, I downloaded it. I haven't like got in the nitty gritty. But yes, I started looking at it, and I was like doing a little dance.
Kiara, also, do you have a download of the discharge status codes?
You sent me 3 things.
No. I didn't send you the disc. I didn't send you that one. I want. Do you have one?
No, I don't think I do.
Because see, this is what I like. I don't get these people like because once again, in the AHIMA study guide, there is no mention of discharge status codes. But in inpatient, you have to know what discharge status codes apply when someone is discharged or transferred or if they expire, and that is covered on the exam.
Now, okay, I know what you're talking about, but no, I don't think I have a list of. You're right. It is something that is covered, and you need to know what they discharge disposition and everything is.
In real life, yes, you do.
And there's also a question, and it asks, something about because discharge disposition can also affect the DRG. Like if you have an if you're assigned an MSDRG and you're discharged alive, it is a different DRG than if you were discharged dead.
Okay, and I'm glad you said it because I told you I have the AAPC study guide book, and they have in here discharge status disposition from hospital, skilled nurse, outpatient hospital service, and all hospital clients. Yes, so I do have those. And you remember I was telling you last. I was like, I don't have. I got the HEMA stuff listening for the domain, but I got AAPC CIC certification study guide, which is, I don't know if it's better, but I like their stuff because I can comprehend it versus like I can listen to the domains that I purchased from AHIMA. But I'm looking at the book from CPC. I know it may sound like strange. That's like, but their information is here. So I don't know. Yeah. So I do have a list of those codes in this book. Yes, I do.
Well, you want to write them somewhere in one of those books you take.
Oh, you already look. You already know. Yes, I have that already.
And what else? What else you want to write down? You want to write down the AHIMA Code of Ethics.
I figured that because like everybody wants you to remember them codes of ethics stuff.
All 12 of them. Write them down.
Look, I'm writing right here in my book, right in book. I got like stuff edit. Like I felt like I knew I was gonna probably need to know like the reimbursement methodologies, knowing like the groups.
Well, what you have to know is you have to know what affects what component of an APR-DRG. Now, for MSDRGs, it's based on principal diagnosis and CC and MCC. Right. That's the MSDRG. And the APR-DRG is composed of the severity of illness and risk of mortality. But under those two subcategories, it's 4 levels, and you have to know those 4 levels.
Right, and see, AAPC's book has all that in here.
It does.
But
I'm like, well, done it. I should have just kept going with my CIC.
No.
But I want to, yes.
Right. You're doing right to get your. But see, that's why I'm telling you, like, because Clarice, like the first week I came, I trash AHIMA study material all the time because it is trash, and it's intentional. Like you have to really go down a rabbit hole and do a whole bunch of backtracking to find out. Whereas AAPC, they tell you exactly what they're going to test you on, and this is what you need to know. And AHIMA should be the same way.
Yeah, because that's what I'm saying. When I'm listening to AHIMA's webinars, I was like, wait a minute, yo, it ain't flowing right. It wasn't, to me, it wasn't flowing right until I listened to the webinar, but looked at my CIC study guide. I said, you know what? Thank you, Lord, because I didn't want to go buy no more books. And I have enough of them.
And you have to know, did I send you all? because I sent you and Janice the same thing. Did I send you the guide to a compliant query?
Yes, I think you did, because I was
Okay.
like, I know that queries are really important on that.
Very, very.
I'm gonna tell you right now. Did you send it in front of my
Okay.
computer? Let me look and see. My baby home from school. Now let's see what we have here. I got a breach management, the HIPAA. I don't know what this one right here is. CIS.
If you don't have it, I'll send it to you. I'll send it to both of y'all. Because
guidelines for achieving a
that's it. That's it.
That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Y'all got me over here rethinking my whole existence.
And that's why I bring this group together so we can get this whole tea, because sometimes the something's missing out of the tea. We ain't got the water, we ain't got no tea bag, we ain't got no sweetener. Something is missing. So
I'm taking notes. Y'all got me rethinking my whole existence.
Don't rethink your whole existence. I would say, Janice, if you want to, you can anytime email me. I'll give you my cell phone number. If you see, but you're lucky you're in a class. See, I refuse to go back in that classroom because I know a lot of this already. So I just got to up my game on my, knowing what CCS is wanting from me.
Right.
And Janice, I'm just going to share this with you. This is just from me to you. You do with it what you will. It is nice to share information, but sometimes you have to keep stuff to yourself.
Amen.
And I'm telling you this for two reasons. Because for one, just like you are here every Saturday morning, people in your class could be here too. That's number one. Number two, when you start giving out too much information and people start asking too many questions, your instructor is going to get upset with you. So, I'm telling you.
Right, because I'm sure there was a raised eyebrow when you started talking about toolkits, and they was like, "Wait a minute, huh?"
Well, it probably was a raised eyebrow, but it shouldn't be, because again, y'all are a human base. So if I'm out here on the website and you're telling me to go out here and look at stuff, I looked at it like that, and I did think about that, Jesse. After I said it, after I mentioned it casually, I did think about that, but then I was like, well, if they came back and say something, then I could just be like, well, you tell us to go look on the website for stuff, and I was looking through the website and I just stumbled across it. But
don't poke the bear.
I'm just gonna do. I'm gonna take this. I'm a woman of faith, and I know that.
That's right.
Some stuff is just for you.
That's right.
Everybody that say they praying for you and they helping you, it's the wrong prayer.
Girl, speak that word.
If you stick with this group, Janice, you will pass your exam the first try.
Yes.
Trust me.
All right. Well, I'm sticking.
Stick and stay. Like, oh my God, that's just. I'm like you, Jesse. It's so mind-boggling that the things that people don't provide, especially in those positions where they should be providing, because your goal is to help, at least, and I can only speak for me. I can only speak for me. My goal is to help.
Teachers out there that's just there for the paycheck. I mean, I've had friends that are in class, and I was like, "Your teacher didn't tell you this?" She's like, "No, she just go over the slides. Like you said, she does not educate. She said she just read the slides. She said, hey, we can read.
You can read for yourself. Exactly.
If you're gonna read the slide, you need to be careful of what's going on that slide." She says, "Karen," she said, she reads the slides, and that's it. I said, "Well,"
and guess what?
That ain't gonna work.
The slide she's reading is approved by HEMA. She didn't even make the slide.
So, right. So she did. Oh Lord.
Already. I told this already. That's already pre-worked up. That's what she's supposed to be doing. They did that harder part for you. So now you're supposed to educate them on what this slide means.
Exactly. You provide that additional information. You provide the.
You
Wow.
gotta add it together. 1 + 1 gonna give you 2. But if you already got 1 and you over here just reading what 1 is, I'm never gonna get anything out of that.
Yeah.
Until pass rate is directly tied to the program's accreditation, it will never change. Seriously, that's why nursing programs are the way they are. In nursing school, if you don't cut the mustard, they will put you out because they would rather put you out than have you fail the exam and drag down their pass rate. They're not going to have it because that's tied to their. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that is true. Yeah.
That's exactly true.
Because I know coders now that have passed the test, and I see stuff. Okay, y'all, this is really gets on my nerves. They put hyperglycemic. Boo, they got diabetes. You just gonna leave that arsehole up in there, really?
Exactly.
You're not gonna change that? I'm gonna need you to switch that over. You're supposed to know that, and you don't pass, and I'm trying to figure out how.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it's me. It's me. I'm sorry. It's me.
Some reason I actually like that sound.
Typing. It's soothing.
It's soothing to me. I feel like you're doing something, relaxing.
In my opinion, what I think now, I don't know for sure. It's just my opinion, but AHEMA does. It's almost to me like their certificate programs are an afterthought. Like that's not what they really focus on.
They are.
I believe that they focus on. Right. Okay. Well, there you go.
They are. So the history of that, AHEMA primarily, because they're the oldest organization, and they're primarily were focused on inpatient coding, everything related to the now defunct, if you will, medical record department. And so with their programs, they were designed to give you a little bit of knowledge on everything that is part of that medical record department. And so as we've progressed, as technology has been added, and as they see the need and change, or the need to change, they kind of reshifted. So that's why they opened up to physician stuff, why they've opened up to outpatient stuff, why they've opened up to CDI and all of those things, because again, that department as they knew that existed no longer exists that way. And so they see this emphasis that people, the importance and emphasis on coding. And so while people didn't necessarily want to go through an entire program learning little bits and pieces about everything, they wanted to specialize. They wanted to specialize in coding. And so they had to kind of scramble and because the CCS, the CCSP, the CCA, all of those things are not as old as the organization and the RHIT and RHIA, because that was what their primary focus was. And so then it to further delineate it, you have these programs that says, you know what, we don't even need to teach all this other stuff. Let's just direct our program toward coding. Well, then you get another mixed bag where you got programs that want to add coding and billing. And so if you're going through a coding and billing program, but sitting for a coding exam, that's gonna muddy your water a little bit if you don't know how to separate the two. And so to your question, it was an afterthought. Long story short, it was an afterthought.
Well, I can believe it, because what also people don't understand is RHIA and RHIT credentials are not coding credentials; those are HIM credentials.
Correct. They teach you a little, they give you a small introduction because I had an RHIT that I went into an RHIA, but during the time that I had my RHIT, I also got coding credentials. And again, that's where you specialize. Once they give you enough of the information, you're like, oh, you know what? I like this part of health information. And then you dig deeper. And that's where the coding piece came from. And that's where I was like, well, let me get my coding certification because I enjoyed the whole process of coding.
Because the one thing that I do give AHIMA credit for is they are forward thinking, because I took like one HIT class like back in 2018, I think, and I was talking to the program director, and I mean, she was a nice lady. I mean, very, very helpful, very, willing to share information, but they're more high level. Like their conversations are more high level. It's not about like, she was the one who told me years ago that coding was going to branch off into 3 areas. She said it's mainly going to be informatics, it's going to be clinical documentation, and auditing.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, like when you talk about, you find out what you want to, what you like,
mm-hmm.
if you want to do, if you get your RHIT or RHIA, and if you look at it, AHIMA has pretty much those credentials. If you want to go into informatics, you can get your CHPS.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go into informatics, you can get your CHDS. Or if you want to go into clinical documentation, you can get your CDIP. So they have it laid out, and that's really how the industry is going.
Mm-hmm. And like I say, I'm probably about to date myself, but back in my day when I went through my program, like we learned transcription. We learned, you had to learn all the different functions within that department. Half of that stuff doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
Hi, okay, I'm trying. I hate to butcher people's names, but I hope I get this right. Sequisa? I hope I said it right. Welcome to the room.
Wow, you got it right.
Yay! Welcome to the room.
Hey, Sequisa.
So you're
learn as much as I can. I actually have a medical clinic, and I've been through at least 5. I've been through 5 billers. Most of them told me that they were also coders, which they were not.
Ooh.
Which cost me thousands and thousands and thousands upon thousands of dollars.
Oh my God.
To get a little bit more knowledgeable about this, so I can stop being taken to the ringer.
Yes, and you don't want to have it where you're low lying fruit for any type of audit situation because you could be in a whole trick bag.
But Sequisa, I want you to tell the full story. I want you to tell these people you're a nurse practitioner and who you're trying to target in your health with your healthcare. You got to big yourself up.
Okay. Well, my name is Sequisa, the Texas MP. I'm a nurse practitioner in private practice. I currently made history as being the first Black male or female nurse practitioner to open up their own own clinic in my county.
Yay!
I specialize in African American people, Black people, colored people, brown people. I actually specialize in it. Took several classes, extra classes, to see how the diseases and the processes affect our bodies and how the drugs affect our bodies. And since it's getting harder and harder for me to find drugs that don't affect us the way that they're supposed to, I've actually decided to go back and get my MD in medicine for natural ways to help heal our bodies.
That's what's up.
There you go.
That's what's up. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm glad to know you. Wait, let me make sure I follow you, ma'am. Hold up. Let me do this right now. Oh goodness. Yes. That's what's up.
When you follow me, I always follow you back.
Hey. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen. This is how you continue to get information and get whatever tea it is that you need is within networking. So we have several opportunities that you can network, because you never know who you may meet and what you can provide for them and possibly what they can provide for you. Now, don't go into the whole networking thing with the expectation of receiving something. Go into it with the giving. Give and you will receive. I thoroughly believe that.
Sequisa and
I
Janelle and I
also
met.
left off the part where I'm trying to create a bunch of nurse practitioners that are open up their own practices who will also be needing coders.
That's what's up. And Jesse and I will be right there to help you along the way. In training those coders or training those people or providing them the compliant, and let me just add that, the compliant way to do things.
Because Sequisa, Janelle, and I met in another nursing group, and Sequisa was the first person to reach out when she found out I was a coder. She was like, "I definitely got to talk to you."
Yes. Because yeah, that will ruin your practice if you have something or someone in there who doesn't have an understanding or isn't strong or knowledgeable about rules, guidelines, regulations, and as I can say over and over again, not ethical or compliantly providing those services. It can cost you. Well, you've experienced it so firsthand.
Exactly. And I tell all of the people that ask me about going into practice, I tell them the most important part is those codes and learning how to code, the CPT codes and things like that. Because you could be the best skilled nurse practitioner in the world. But if you can't get paid for it, you gonna be broke.
Amen. Amen. Yeah, I'm starting. There's a lady that I'm helping start her she's in behavioral health and she's starting her behavioral health practice, and she knows a little bit about and it's like, no ma'am, don't play those games. Make sure you have somebody in here who knows and can tell you what it is that you're doing and how it equates to a particular code and whether or not that's something that's even billable for you. So yeah.
I used to do behavioral health auditing, and I had no idea that it was such a free for all in behavioral health, and it's because a lot of the smaller practitioners, like they do counseling on their own, and they trust people, or they may even do their own billing, and just one digit off it can cause a denial.
One
Or
digit off, not having the correct place of service,
right,
not
okay.
verifying that the person has the appropriate insurance in order to even receive the services that you gave. I mean, it's a whole laundry list of why they have denials in that world. Yeah. And then add on top of that, like the whole substance and addiction services as well. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad to meet everybody. This has been great. Okay, so normally we have an hour long a session. So we're here every Saturday from 9 to 10, where we talk all things health information. We talk things coding. We talk entrepreneurship. I see we got nurses in the house, so we'll be talking nursing as needed. um, all the great things going on. So I appreciate you all being here. Again, please, make sure you stay connected. If you hit the little greenhouse, you will always get notifications when we're on. But connect with each other. We have brand new students who are, getting all the tea and learning everything to be successful in this field. And so I feel like we're kind of grooming and shaping our students as well. So if there's any information or as I like, y'all know I'm the girl with the pearls of wisdom that you want to provide to them, feel free to do that as well. So with that, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Jesse, I will be reaching out to you this week because I have another question that I need to run past you. And again, thank you all, and I'll see you all next Saturday.
Have a good weekend,
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye bye.